So I'll start this video where I started it last year, addressing what a lot of you are probably thinking, which is, Kathis, this game is 6 years old, it's way too late for me to start, why are you making this video? Well, I'm happy to say this really couldn't be further from the truth. The way how Destiny works, in general, is that it's designed to retain long-term veteran players. Yeah, it doesn't always succeed there, I know. But it's also supposed to help bring in new players. Here's an example. The second you boot up the game, let's say your friends convince you to start playing, you can run almost any raid or dungeon with them right off the bat, which is some of the best content the game has to offer. You don't need to level, you don't need to do any prerequisite quests other than maybe the New Light quest line, which that can be done in like an hour. You can instantly jump into the current season and story without having to do 6 years of previous campaigns. That is if you don't want to. You can pretty much play Destiny however way you want. So much of the game is open to you right when you boot it up. Of course, there is some high-end content for you to chase. This is a live service game after all, so it's going to reward you if you're willing to put the time into it. Another reason why it's not too late to jump into Destiny is that all exotic weapons and armor in the game never become unobtainable. So no matter when you jump in, you'll always be able to get every exotic in the game if you want. Yeah, some legendary items get removed from the loot pool each year, which get replaced by new legendary weapons, but there's never going to be a time in the game where an old weapon is better than something the game currently has to offer. You can always work your way up to run any content no matter when you start playing. So in general, whatever weapons are currently available in the game are usually the most powerful weapons the game has ever seen. So you're good, trust me. Now I want to guide you on how to purchase each DLC in the game. It's very confusing, there's a lot to it, but I'll try to make it simple for you. If you're just looking to test out the game, play it for free at first. Don't buy anything, just download it. Get some early Guardian ranks done, get your New Light questline done, just get a feel for the game, see if you even like the gameplay. If you have some friends that play the game too, have them take you through a couple of the raids if they end up running those. There are a couple raids that you get for free. So if you're sold on Destiny, you want to get it, grab Lightfall first. Lightfall is going to be the newest DLC. And if you think you're going to play Destiny for the entire year, grab the Lightfall Deluxe Edition, which will get you Lightfall. It's going to get you all 4 seasons and both dungeon keys for both new dungeons. I know $100 is a lot per year for the Deluxe Edition, but it really is a lot better value than if you were to buy everything separately, so I did just want to let you know that. But maybe you don't buy Lightfall, you don't buy the Deluxe Edition. At minimum, if you do want to buy something, make sure to get whatever the active season is, which right now we are in Season of the Deep. It's very easy, you can buy it right from the store in-game. As far as legacy content goes, don't buy the 30th anniversary bundle, since for $5 more, you can get the Armory collection, which gets you everything in the 30th anniversary, plus the Forsaken pack, which the Forsaken pack is going to get you the Shattered Throne dungeon and the Last Wish raid. And the third chunk of content I'd recommend getting is the Legacy collection. Please do not buy each expansion separately. It's a total waste of money. I would recommend waiting for a sale on the Legacy collection. It regularly goes 50 to 70% off, so just wait until one of those pops up. If you buy everything in this way, it's going to get you all the content in the game for the lowest price and the least amount of separate downloads. Bundling everything is always going to be best, so save up for these bundles if you're able to. And yeah, my recommendation is if you are really enjoying Destiny, if you've been playing for a while, then you do want to eventually get all the DLCs. All the old raids and dungeons are still relevant in the game and offer you some really good weapons, some good exotics, and armor sets to go for, and they're just a lot of fun. So I know that's confusing, hopefully that breakdown was helpful. Since Destiny's inception, we've had the option to pick between 3 classes: Titan, Hunter, and Warlock. I don't ever expect this to change. Titans are basically a warrior class, high offensive and defensive capabilities. You could do things like become an electric missile, pop a protective bubble for your team, and just punch everything. A fun class if you want to be in action all the time. Hunters are more stealthy, agile gunslingers that can do things like go invisible, launch a giant arrow at enemies to debuff them, and will be a general annoyance to your fire team. Just kidding, but seriously. And finally, Warlocks are in general considered to be the support class. They've got the ability to create a Well of Radiance to make the full fire team nearly invincible. They've got portable healing rifts and on-command strand threadlings that they can send off to do damage for them. This is of course just a very brief overview of each class. I just touched on a few of the abilities that each class has. They are way more in depth than this, but I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. But each class also has 5 subclasses that they can work with to create builds for. As the game stands now, we've got 3 light subclasses and 2 darkness subclasses, which we're able to pick one of these at a time to use. Starting with the light or our energy-based subclasses, we've first got solar, which is the power of the sun. Solar is all about healing ourselves while igniting nuclear bombs on enemies while we're burning or scorching them. Then you have arc or electricity, which is all about chain lightning, blinding enemies, and amplifying ourselves to increase our speed and power. And void, the gravity-based subclass. It's all about unstable energy and making enemies volatile, which causes them to explode. We can also devour the life force of these enemies to heal ourselves and also create overshields to make us more tanky. As for the two darkness subclasses or the physical matter subclasses, we first got stasis. It's basically an ice-based subclass that we can use to slow, freeze, and shatter enemies, which can be very helpful for ad control. And strand, the newest subclass, is based off of matter that we can weave from other dimensions to destroy our opponents. We use this to unravel, suspend, and sever our enemies, which renders them completely crowd controlled and useless. We can also conjure woven mail as a defensive strand armor to reduce incoming damage. Each of these 5 subclass types are useful in different circumstances and extend to every part of Destiny as well. This means our weapons will also have damage types, and guns matching our subclass type can provide unique synergies and can further increase our build's power by doing so. Again, very brief explanations of all of these, but now you know the basics of damage types in Destiny. Alright, moving on, let's talk live service. What can you expect when you jump in and start playing, and what can you look forward to? Starting at the most broad view, you've got the annual expansions, which typically launch in February as of the last couple of years. So I know I went over this briefly, but think Lightfall, the Witch Queen, Beyond Light, and so on. These expansions obviously contain the largest amount of content as they only happen once per year. They'll launch with a brand new campaign, a new destination, new raid, new weapons, quests, a couple of massive new features, and tons of quality of life improvements. These launches are some of the most exciting times to play Destiny because of all the new stuff there is to play. As far as what Bungie has told us, old expansions will never be removed from the game, so you can always go back later and pick them up. So as I mentioned, Legacy Collection, Armory Collection, all that stuff. So these expansions are broken up into 4 seasons to help the content flow be a little bit more consistent. It's not always perfect, but at least you know there is something new to play anytime a new season drops. With seasons, you'll get weekly episodic missions, more new weapons to chase, a new raid or dungeon, a new seasonal activity themed after the season, quality of life improvements, and occasionally a new exotic mission. You will also be able to progress a battle pass, which, like other games, will give you a lot of currencies. It gives you a unique exotic weapon and armor set, and some other cosmetic items as well. These battle passes are not difficult at all to get to level 100. You just have to be semi-active during the season. Just play the game and you should get to 100, no problem. Each season will also unlock a new interactable area of the Helm. You can think of these interactable areas as your seasonal vendors. This is where you're going to get all of your seasonal stuff done. You get your seasonal weapons and armor, as well as some extra currencies too. We also get an artifact that launches each season. These artifacts drastically change up the seasonal metas. They are obtained right at the beginning of every season for everyone, and they contain passive perk trees that you can progress throughout the season. You can pick any 12 of the perks that are on this artifact, and they are actually active in any content that you play. And you can reset these perks, you can change them around anytime you want. Once the next season hits though, there will be a new artifact with new perks to mess around with, so don't get too attached to the perks that each artifact offers. It is worth mentioning too that all seasonal content, aside from battle passes and artifacts, are available for the entire duration of that current expansion, which means for now, seasons 20 through 23 will be available until next expansion, the Final Shape, which launches next year in 2024. So all the weapons, stories, missions, you will be able to do all of those as long as you own that season. Breaking it down even further, Destiny operates on a weekly reset system where new things happen each reset, which is on Tuesdays. This is typically when the next episode of each seasonal story will launch. You get a new event that might happen, like Iron Banner, and it's also when all Pinnacle content gets rotated. So, brief explanation of Pinnacle content. Think of it as featured content of that week in each category that at its most basic level just gives you higher power level rewards. Whatever the newest raid and newest dungeon is in the game will always be a Pinnacle activity, so every week you will always be able to run them to help get your power up and get some awesome loot. There will also always be one Pinnacle Legacy raid and Pinnacle Legacy dungeon that will be available for you to run as well, which means that old content in the game stays relevant. Each weekly reset also rotates in some other content as well, like a new Nightfall Strike, new Crucible playlist, as well well as some other inventory refreshes. Okay, so now that the live service side of the game has been covered, let's now go over how you level in Destiny. As of this year, in Lightfall, the minimum power level you can be is 1600. This means that automatically, even by being a brand new player, you are already at 1600 power with the ability to reach a maximum base power of 1810. And if you're a returning player, all of your gear has been brought up to that 1600 power minimum that will be ready to go for you right when you log in. That is unless you have some really old Sunset gear, but that is a different conversation. All of that gear is useless anyway. So what does power level mean and why is it important? Well, increasing your power level obviously makes you more powerful, but it will also help you unlock some of that higher level content that I briefly brought up at the beginning of this video. So leveling up your power unlocks more of the game. Some content is literally impossible if you are too far underleveled, so really try to pay attention to that recommended power before loading into an activity. As a brand new player, you should never be loading into anything that is more than 10 to 15 levels higher than your current power level. If the recommended power is too high, just come back when you've leveled up a bit. It's not that difficult to level up. I see way too many people complaining that they just can't do something, it's way too hard, and then I ask them what their power level is and they say that they're like 40 power levels under the recommended, which is just not smart. Power level is the biggest and most effective boost that you can make to your Guardian, so get that power at or as close to 1810 as you can. That should be your main priority. It is worth noting too that any legendary or purple quality gear that is not Sunset, so anything released post Beyond Light, can be upgraded all the way to the maximum power level. Same thing goes for exotics too. That means that if you really like a legendary weapon, maybe you found early on in the campaign, you're just really attached to it, you are free to keep that weapon forever and upgrade it all the way up to 1810 if you want. Stats, traits, everything on an item are static. They never change. So let's say you have a 58 base stat roll on a 1650 power chest piece. It's going to stay at 58 even if you level it all the way up to 1810. Figured I should clarify that because it's not made clear in the game. The same thing goes for stats on weapons. Leveling up the power level will not change any stats or traits on it. So now let's talk about how you power level. I will say that the power level got an interesting change this season in that we actually didn't get an increase to the power cap, which is like the first time in 3 years that happened. I'm not sure if this is going to be a permanent thing going forward. They're testing it out, but just have a goal for now of getting to 1810 power, and let's just hope it stays there for the next few seasons. Getting your power level up is done in a couple different phases. First, you will need to reach the soft cap, which is 1750 power. This can be done by doing literally anything in the game. During this phase, almost every single drop for you will be an upgrade. My recommended way of getting this done quickly is by just running the campaign. You'll get frequent loot chest drops that will be really nice boost to your power, but again, play how you want. Getting to the soft cap is very easy. And once you get to the soft cap, you will need to reach the hard cap, which is 1800. The only way to reach 1800 is by running any content that grants either powerful and pinnacle rewards or by decoding prime engrams. Prime engrams are purple engrams that you will have to decode at the Cryptarch, which is at the tower. They drop about once every 30 to 45 minutes. There's no like farming you can do for these, so just look out for them and decode them as you get them. If you're diligent with running powerful and pinnacle content, you should be able to reach 1800 power in about a week or two. You can do it kind of quickly. Up until this point, I would highly advise against using things like upgrade modules to upgrade your gear, as they're not super common and you'll be getting higher level power items so quickly that it's a complete waste to use them as you're leveling. Once you make it to 1800 though, you're safe to start using those upgrade modules, upgrade your main armor set and your most used weapons. The final pinnacle power cap is 1810. That's all you've got left. And unfortunately, this is what takes the longest. You can do this whole thing solo if you want, but it's going to take you longer to reach that max power. A good majority of pinnacle content is behind the raids and dungeons, so ideally you do want to try to find groups to run these activities with. And raids and dungeons are the best content in the game, so of course you're going to want to run them. There is one final piece to your power level, and that is artifact power. I talked about the artifact towards the beginning of this video. It's the thing that gets you those unique seasonal perks, but its secondary function is to give you seasonal power. As you gain XP in the game, you'll level up your artifact power, giving you the ability to surpass power level 1810. So let's say you just completely blast a season, you get tons of XP, you should be able to get 25 to 30 extra artifact power on top of 1810. So keep in mind though, this will reset at the end of each season, so you will be taken back to 1810 at the start of the next season. You'll have to regrind that artifact power all over again. So what can you do in Destiny? What activities does the game have to offer? We'll start with PvE, and specifically the campaigns. If you buy every expansion, you can go through each campaign in order, but you don't need to do that. You can go straight to the Lightfall campaign and go play all the others at any time, again since Bungie has said they will not be removing any older campaigns from the game. There's also this timeline area that allows you to catch up on any story or seasons that you've missed out on too. Go check that out if you want. Campaigns are obviously where we get our main story beats of what's actually happening in this live universe, but completing campaigns will unlock a lot of additional content for you to run, like exotic quest lines. Completing the Lightfall campaign, for example, specifically unlocks the Strand damage type, which is a massive part of the game that you really don't want to miss out on. So yeah, eventually you're going to want to get to clearing every campaign when you can. Next up, we've got the Vanguard section. Doing anything in this Vanguard section means running strikes, which are essentially mini missions with a boss at the end that you can run for loot and Vanguard reputation, which Vanguard reputation is just one type of rep that you can earn from doing most activities in the game. Zavala is going to be your point of contact for the Vanguard, so go to him to collect your rewards for leveling up. First, the strike playlist is basically your I want to kill some enemies / I need to run this to complete some quest lines activity. You can blow through these in about 8 to 12 minutes with little issue. They're very easy. Nightfall strikes though are where things get a little bit tougher, as they are the same strikes from the strike playlist, but they've got more difficulty modifiers on them, and they will also cap your power to make them even more difficult. Each week, as mentioned already, a new Nightfall strike will enter the rotation with 6 Nightfalls in total each season. Each Nightfall also has its own unique weapon to chase, meaning that you'll be able to farm for these for different trait combos if you really want a god roll of that specific Nightfall weapon. There are 4 difficulties that you can choose from when running Nightfalls. Grandmaster Nightfalls, being the toughest difficulty, can be very brutal, but they offer the best rewards. You'll get tons of exotic engrams, materials, and even higher quality versions of the Nightfall weapons called Adept Nightfall weapons. These have slightly better stats than their normal counterparts, and they will also allow you to slot in adept weapon mods, which are the most powerful versions of regular weapon mods. And just keep in mind, to get the best possible rewards per Nightfall, you will need to reach Platinum rank, which means killing every champion. So learning where they spawn and how many champions there are really helps out here. So that's the Vanguard section. Next, let's cover dungeons. These are much longer, multi-encounter missions that are designed for 3 players. They contain unique mechanics and puzzle solving, which is a definite step up from the easier mechanics that most strikes have. Dungeons are not match made, so you will want to group up with others to run them. At least starting off, they can be soloed once you have some builds good to go. But yeah, don't expect to just load into one as a new light and be able to finish it. You're going to get wrecked. Find some people to help you, and of course you can always find people in my Discord. Anyway, each of these dungeons contain many secrets, hidden chests, and awesome looking armor and weapons to grind for. And usually they'll have a unique exotic tied to them in some way, kind of like how the Gallahorn is tied to Grasp of Avarice. Taking it up another notch, raids are like dungeons, except they are designed for 6 players instead of 3. And they are also another step up from dungeons in terms of mechanics. They're a lot more complex. You'll often need to have multiple people fulfilling different roles to complete different encounters and just to make it to the damage phase on a boss. Destiny raiding is the most fun thing you can do in the game, just my opinion, but I honestly can't imagine playing this game without raids. You've got multiple raids to run, again, all with unique armor and weapons, secrets to uncover, and challenges to complete. Raids also contain a unique exotic weapon to chase, with 1 chance for it to drop each week for each character you have. Raids can be intimidating. I know, we've all been there. I used to be terrified of joining a group, messing up, and then getting booted for making a simple mistake. But I can promise you that our Discord community hosts a ton of teaching runs where we actually teach you the raid, we'll get you through it. And yeah, we normally do a Divinity run a couple times a month, which is like the most hated thing you can do in Destiny. So yeah, we can take you through that, we got you. We've got plenty of other PvE content as well, and I'm just going to lump them all into this one section here. Seasonal activities were something that I briefly tapped on already, but to go into a little bit more detail, they are essentially small missions, again, that often are match made with 3 to 6 other players and usually take 10 to 15 minutes to complete. These will help you rank up your seasonal vendor at the helm that we mentioned earlier. the more you run that seasonal activity, the more you rank up your helm area, which means more engrams that you can focus into unique seasonal weapons and armor that you want. Exotic missions are also in the game. These are kind of in between a strike and dungeon in terms of length and difficulty, usually. These missions will obviously reward you with a unique exotic weapon, which is tied to that mission, and a few of these exotics can be enhanced by completing certain extra challenges within those exotic missions, so there's a lot of reason to replay these. Season 22, or next season, will be bringing an exotic mission rotator to the game, which will apparently be bringing back old exotic missions that had been removed from the game, and these will be bringing back exotics like the Hawk Moon and the Dead Man's Tail for us to earn random rolls on. And the last PvE activity I'll mention is Dares of Eternity. Nothing has really changed here since it got released like 2 years ago. It basically feels like a playlist strike. It's very easy, tons of enemies to shoot, some cool weapons that you can grind for and craft as well. Alright, let's move on to PvP, which is not something I am a specialist in. I just don't play often and I'm not that good at it. I just don't enjoy it that much, but if you do like PvP in general, it can be fun as long as something is not completely broken, which unfortunately is like all the time in PvP. But in all seriousness, you've got your basic zone control, deathmatch, rumble modes. These are the most commonly played. And then you'll have a unique weekly mode like Mayhem, which gives you all of your abilities back almost instantly. That can be fun to mess around in sometimes. Iron Banner is an event that comes around about once a month, and it usually contains an interesting twist on some normal PvP modes. This event will last 1 week, and it rewards you with some cool looking armor sets and some good weapons. Trials of Osiris, or the sweatiest game mode of them all, is around on most weekends, and it's your 3v3 hyper competitive mode that rewards some of the strongest weapons in the game. And you've got your other normal ladder competitive modes. This is also 3v3. You can ascend ranks to see how you actually stack up against other guardians. Playing in this mode will get you a unique legendary weapon and a cool icon to show how awesome you are. And finally, our last PvP mode is Gambit. This mode always seems to be in desperate need of love, as it rarely ever sees any updates like new maps, bosses, or general change-ups to the gameplay. This is actually a PvPvE mode where you will be fighting enemies as well as other guardians. You take out your big boss before the other team and you win. But mastering and really having fun in these activities cannot be done by raising your power level alone. You do need to get some builds going to maximize your effectiveness in battle. Fortunately, there are tons of content creators that make incredible videos on builds for just about any form of content in the game. The most important thing that you can do though is just test out as much as you can for yourself to see how things actually work. Each class and subclass plays very differently and can be customized by swapping out different abilities, aspects, and fragments. And if you're missing any one of these things, just visit Ikora at the tower and start throwing your glimmer at her until everything here is unlocked. In my opinion, getting everything here fully purchased is the best way to spend your glimmer when starting off. For your darkness subclasses, you'll have to do something a little bit different. You have to complete quests from the Exostranger to unlock Stasis and collect Strand fragments for the Hall of Heroes after you beat the Lightfall campaign in order to fully unlock Strand. But the subclass stuff, that's only part of it. You also have your armor mods to consider. Thankfully, every single mod in the game is available to you once you hit Guardian rank 6, which can easily be done as long as you're working toward it. Mods are incredibly powerful. They can help you a ton with keeping high ability uptime, generating orbs of power, and even boosting your weapon damage. Mods will take up armor energy, which is indicated by the number on the right corner of the mod. You'll need to upgrade your armor pieces to hold a maximum of 10 mod energy to fit the most amount of mods possible. Picking an armor combination that has a good stat distribution in stats that you want can be kind of hard, but I'd recommend using a site like D2 Armor Picker to find all of your best combinations of stats in all of your armor so you can level the right pieces of armor. Yep, I know, there's a lot here, but once you get a build mastered, it is the most satisfying thing in the game. It's really worth the time to get multiple builds going so you're ready for any kind of content. Builds are also typically centered around an exotic armor piece. You can only have one exotic equipped at a time, so you'll want to make sure that the one that you do have equipped actually enhances your build in some way. What you shouldn't do is just equip any exotic without knowing what it does. For example, let's say you're playing Arc Titan, but you think that the Helm of Saint 14 looks really cool. Unfortunately, this is not going to help you at all because Helm of Saint 14 enhances your Ward of Dawn, which is on the Void subclass. So it's not going to do anything for you other than be a regular helmet if you have an Arc subclass equipped. The moral of the story here is just look at the exotic perk, see what it does, and make it make sense for your build. If you're curious to see what exotic armor pieces are out there for you to get, you can check anytime by visiting the collections tab in the exotic area. So now let's say you found the exotic you want, it looks really awesome, it does all the right things. How do you get it? We've got a few different ways here. There are world drops, battle pass rewards. You can purchase them from Zur, he comes once a week, Nightfalls, and also solo, legend, and master lost sectors. You can also do Vex incursions, which take place on Neomuna. It does require Lightfall, but these will get you a guaranteed exotic when you run them. It's kind of like a big public event, and I do have alerts set up in my Discord so you can be notified right when those happen. Pretty cool feature. So there's a lot of ways to get exotics, but the real grind is getting the exotic that you want with the stats that you want. And that also means getting other armor pieces that also have good stat rolls in those stats that you can pair up with that exotic armor piece. So lots of RNG here, but this is a lot of the fun in Destiny. It's all about the loot, all about the grind. And I will say one last thing on builds is that you'll be able to create preset loadouts using the tool here on the character screen. If you like the way a build that you put together functions, you can actually save it with its own icon and name right from here. Once you reach rank 6, I believe, you'll be able to have up to 10 loadouts, so it makes it very easy to instantly swap to different subclasses, different builds, and it even saves your transmog as well. So you can make sure to get that cool look going in the armor customization screen, and you can save that. So next we'll cover some very high level overview stuff on weapons. There's just way too many different weapons, weapon types in the game. I can't do a in-depth guide in here, so I hope that's okay. But the main weapons you'll be using when leveling are rare quality weapons or blue weapons. These are strictly used for leveling and obtaining materials and do not ever need to be kept for anything past that. So you're safe to just throw these away, dismantle them when you find anything that is higher power level or anything better. The weapons you'll be using the most in Destiny 2 are legendary quality weapons or purple weapons. These will feature higher stats than rare weapons, and they also come with additional traits to make them even stronger. Some legendary weapons can even be crafted, which gives you full control over what traits are put on that weapon. And if you want to see a guide on how to craft weapons, I will put a link for it up in the corner right now, so you can click on that if you want. All legendary weapons in the game will have a barrel, a magazine, 2 traits, and an origin trait, each of which will make that weapon feel unique. So this means that if you have duplicate weapons, like 2 of the same exact weapon, they will most likely perform differently from one another due to their unique roles. The best advice here, again, is just to try out the different roles, try to pay attention to what each one does, and see which one you like best. A good resource to check out all possible roles on all weapons in the game is LightGG, which I will include in the description. It really helps you know what you should be looking out for on each weapon you find. Of course, there are exotic weapons as well, just like exotic armor. You can only have one exotic weapon equipped at a time. Exotics are not necessarily always better than legendaries, so same thing here. Just because you have an exotic, it doesn't mean that you have to have it equipped all the time. Exotics are more unique weapons. They can be very good as long as you know how to use them. Each exotic weapon will offer some sort of interesting playstyle that can help enhance your build even further. Again, as long as you're playing into it. It's worth noting that every raid and most dungeons will also offer a unique exotic weapon for you to chase. The Root of Nightmares raid, for example, has a very small chance to drop the conditional finality shotgun, which is a very strong weapon, so it is worth running that raid until you get it to drop. So we talked a little bit about Guardian ranks earlier, but these are very important. I wanted to cover them a little bit more. Each Guardian rank will show you where to go, how to make you more powerful, and what you can do in the game. The Guardian rank number maxes out at level 11, so you know that if you see someone that's rank 11, you know they've done like everything possible in the game. They're very high level players. Your journey through these ranks will have you complete every raid and dungeon, Grandmaster Nightfalls, collect a bunch of exotics, earn commendations, the list goes on. There's a lot for you to do. So if you ever feel like you don't know what you're supposed to do in the game, just check to see what you need to do for your next Guardian rank. Guaranteed that will point you in the right direction. Or you could always complete titles as well. These are yet another badge of honor that appears underneath your name to others. These titles will show your mastery of specific content in a game. So if you've completed every triumph for the Root of Nightmares raid, for example, you'll get the Dream Warrior title. So that means that you have just completely mastered mastered every challenge that raid has to offer. There are tons of unique titles to go for. You can even guild certain titles as well. Title guilding is available on titles that can be repeated season over season, and they offer some bonus seasonal specific challenges for you to complete, like Dredgen, Conqueror, and Glorious titles, just to name a few. Title guilding is basically the same thing as prestiging in other games, and you'll know that a title can be gilded by the little dot on the bottom right corner of it. So the last thing we'll cover in this guide are quests and bounties. You've got a dedicated tab for your quests and bounties here, and you'll probably get a million quests right when you start up the game as you talk with different NPCs that the game has you interact with. That's okay. Just don't get overwhelmed. You don't have to do everything right away. What I'd recommend is focusing on anything in the Lightfall tab. That's the most relevant and new content, and then you can work on the other stuff later. You will probably complete stuff without realizing it, since a lot of quest steps are kind of basic. They just have you kill some enemies, so you're going to complete a lot of stuff automatically. If you ever have too many quests though, you can always abandon them and pick them up later at the quest kiosk. Bounties, on the other hand, are small objectives that you can pick up from most vendors at the tower and at the helm. These reward you with XP toward your battle pass, and they can even help you earn some more powerful gear if you complete enough of them. It's a good practice to pick up what you can at the start of each day and passively work through them as you complete stuff. It's going to help your leveling experience go by even quicker. Well, that's it. I'm like losing my voice here. This game is big. There's a lot to do. I know it can be overwhelming. I hope this helped break down the game for you though, so I hope it's a little bit easier for you to understand. The best way to play Destiny though is with friends. So obviously make sure to join the Discord. If you have any more questions, feel free to tag me, ask me anything. We got a bunch of people that are very helpful in there. So anyone is welcome, so drop by and say hi. But everyone, that is it for this one. I will see you all in the next video.